Hello, everybody. Welcome to Rake the Take, a golf betting podcast hosted by me, Chris Lewis. And this week we'll be talking about the Worldwide Technology Championship, which takes place at El Cardinal at Diamante. This is the second year that they've hosted this event at this course after moving on from El Camaleon at Mayakoba because they did not want to play at a live golf course. This is Tiger Woods' first designed course, and last year Eric Van Rooyen won with Matt Kuchar and Camilo Villegas in the rear. Overall, it plays pretty short. Besides the fact that it's 7,300 yards and a par 72, there are a lot of elevated tee boxes and some wide fairways, so a lot of distance is not really the main factor at this course. So a lot of people of varying distances can really succeed here. And overall, I think that's kind of the main takeaway from last year. There wasn't really a pure skill set from other aspects of the bag that really felt important. It will be a low scoring week because of that. So you definitely need to be dialed in on approach and with the short game. Those will be important factors. But you don't anyone of any expert at any kind of skill set can probably do well here, as long as you're playing in the fairway and not waywardly bad, and you can actually hit a good approach shots to hit putts. That's going to be really the main things for this week. I wouldn't say it's really a course that you can bomb and gouge and take over with distance unless you're very accurate with the driver. But yeah, I think you look at somebody like Van Rooyen, who won last year. He does have a decent amount of distance, but his ball striking was so on point when he won that week. He was just very fluid throughout the bag. But yeah, overall though, to just kind of detail the type of hitter I'm looking at this week, distance is not really going to play a huge factor for me, but I will be looking at players that at least have some proficiency with the other skill sets in the bag. And to start off my recommendations or betting tips for this week, the first golfer that I want to recommend is JJ Spaun. You can get him at plus 2,800 for this week, and JJ Spaun has low-key been in some really good form this season, or kind of coming into the end of this season. He started off the year very poorly, but really ever since the Rocket Mortgage Classic, he's been pretty consistent. In that span of about the last 4 months, he has 4 top 10s, including a top 5, one tie for 23rd and one tie for 25th. His lowest finish has been tie for 45th, excluding the WD at the Sanderson Farms. Not sure what happened there. It might have been injury or sickness related. So that bad performance, I feel like we can kind of write off. He's only lost strokes in one event since the Rocket Mortgage, which was at the ISCO Championship. And he's just been very consistent throughout the bag. Even though the putter isn't his most consistent skill set, he's been putting pretty well over the past few months. And his short game has been pretty good as well, which typically are have been his weaknesses over the past few months. Not really historically, but I'd say that really for JJ Spaun, if he's just consistent with his ball striking, he can be a very productive player on the PGA Tour, because he is a very solid approach player. He's very good with his wedges, and as long as he's accurate off the tee, I feel pretty confident about him as a player right now. His accuracy has been very good, which has just been leading to very good results on approach. It's just really mainly his around the green game and putting that are pretty average. They can be kind of streaky at times, but Spaun has overall been in really good form, and I like him at plus 2,800. I feel like that's just a very fair number for him. And I just think that given his recent form and history, he's going to probably be in the mix this week. Um, I don't really expect it, especially with this being a weaker field. He won't have to really necessarily, you know, have to compete with some of the best players in the world, like he's had to do at times this year, especially in the later portion of the season. But he was able to do that and have a lot of good performances. So I think that JJ Spawn is a great pick for this week, given where he's at with his ball striking. I expect him to really be a good player for this tournament. And then after that, kind of going off of last year, I think Matt Kuchar at plus 3,300 is another really good bet. Kuchar, you know, obviously is not the furthest hitter in the world, given his age and just where he is at in his career, but he's been having sort of a career renaissance over the past few months. A lot of really good performances, including a top 5 at the 3M Open and some top 20s here and there of the past few months, including more recently at the Shriners Championship, where he had a tie for 14th finish. He played okay at the Zozo, just had a bad putting week. But overall, though, I think we all know that Matt Kuchar is a very good putter over the course of his career. That's definitely been one of his strong points, especially around the greens as well. But his wedges, especially on shorter courses, have been dialed in from 50 to 100 yards and 150 yards to he's been one of the better players on the PGA Tour overall. It's just obviously from those longer distances, he hasn't really been the best player, but I don't think that's going to be too much of an issue for him this week. As we saw last year, he was able to contend at this event. And Kuchar has been a player throughout his career that has played well at courses he's done well at. So I don't really expect him to kind of fall off this week. He does need to continue to have good events given where he's at in the FedEx Cup rankings. He's only 105th, so he does need to keep piling up good weeks. And so maybe a top finish or a win here could really elevate his status for next season. Kuchar is a player that I just have been really impressed with over the past few months, given where he was at kind of going into this year. I think last year he also had a few stretches of very good play. So I think that Kuchar's a guy that don't really think it's a buy low, obviously at plus 3,300, but given where his form is at and what we know about him, I do expect Kuchar to be in the mix this week. This is a great course fit for him, and for where he's at in his career, there aren't really a lot of places that he can go and confidently say that. So I love Kuchar this week. I think he's a great bet. I want to be able to cash in on him before he really falls off again. And then finally, I also really like Nate Lashley this week. Lashley is kind of an inconsistent player. Over the past few months, he's had some poor results, I would say, but he's really starting to kind of come back to himself over the past few events. He had a top 20 at the Zozo, a great short game week. I think the main problem for him is that his accuracy off the tee and his distance have really been falling off. But I still consider him a good accuracy player overall, despite that downward trend on the off the tee numbers. But if you look at his short game and his ability on approach, still very solid. You might even say above average in some regards, but I just think that with his problem is just the overall consistency, because if he's not putting himself in good positions off the tee, he just can't really create enough consistent looks to really be relevant at events, because he isn't a top tier ball striker anymore. He used to be a great approach player, kind of going into last season. He had some great performances, especially this year at the Players, where he had a tie for 13th. But this is typically the type of event where Nate Lashley can succeed, where it's not an overpowering course from a distance perspective, and a place where he can just kind of rely on his short game and some solid wedge play to kind of carry for him throughout a good week. But in a weaker field like this, Lashley can succeed. He's been able to win at events like this before, like the 2019 Rocket Mortgage Classic. And then also, like earlier this year, he was able to have a top 5 finish at the Farmers Insurance Open, which I don't believe that was a designated event. Yeah, no, that was the event that Matthew Pavone won. So it was kind of a weird week that week overall. But, I think that he does have some upside, especially with the putter and with the irons at times. But it's just that distance that's really hampers him throughout the season, especially when they play on some of these longer courses. He really struggles at that kind of event. However, I still think Lashley is a good player overall, worthy of a PGA Tour card. So I expect him to kind of make it into the top 120 with a good week this week. He's at 107 right now, so I think he's in a solid pace as long as he continues to play well. And I expect this to be a course where he can continue to do that, kind of picking up off his momentum the past few weeks. And last year, he finished tied for 10th here, so there are some good vibes, some good course history coming into this event. But you can get him at plus 7,000. I think he's a good tip this week. But yeah, overall, that's pretty much it for the Worldwide Technology Championship. We got JJ Spawn, we got Matt Kuchar, we got Nate Lashley. Kind of an interesting bag of names here, but I feel kind of good about it, especially since we're going a little bit up the top of the board, not buying low on guys this week. So even though that it did kind of work out in some regards at the Zozo with that, I'm happy to kind of just take some guys that I feel confident in going into this week. Guys who are in good form, who have good course history, very reliable names outside of Lashley maybe, but I've been in this position before with him. I don't mind going back again. But anyways, thanks for listening, and I'll see you soon.